Welcome back. We finally get to the Canadian Squirrel brushes. I don't have any other squirrel hair types from them, so unfortunately I'm unable to review those. A Fude buddy says that their blue squirrel tips are finer than Chikuhodo's, but the softness is the same. I would say that the elusiveness of the brand is what makes Takeda the most appealing, similar to CSQU brushes. I customized all the ferrules, handles, and engraving for these brushes because they're extra special. Takeda is most known for their Canadian squirrel brushes, and I think many Fude lovers like ordering them from Takeda because they can customize the shapes and get round shapes as those are rare in the Fude world, especially for Canadian squirrel. And from here on out, I'm going to refer to Canadian squirrel as CS. Hakuhodo and Chikuhodo don't have any CS brushes in their current lineups, any CS face brushes in their current lineups, and Koyudo consistently comes out with flat CS face brushes. If Koyudo came out with round ones, they would be a pretty penny, but they would be wonderful because I love Koyudo CS. Anyways, the hairs are the most expensive from Takeda, along with Kolinsky and Weasel trailing behind in price. The blush brushes base price are around 21 to 25,000 yen. Canadian squirrel hairs have a distinctive coloring of darker brown on the bottom and a lighter orange shade that takes up about 50 to 70% of the rest of the brush. The hairs are more elastic and resilient than regular blue and gray squirrel. They are somewhere in between regular squirrel and goat cycle hairs in terms of performance, softness, and hair thickness. This means that they perform better than the softer squirrel hair types like red, blue, and gray, but would require some time and more effort to build up color than a goat brush would. They also blend better than those squirrel types and pick up more pigment. They're still soft enough for sensitive skin, and the gradient and application ability is similar to pine squirrel. I don't feel like I need to baby my CS hairs due to their robustness. They're very springy. The first brush is a small eyeshadow brush labeled as WF CSQU. So let me just show you. I didn't engrave WF on here. I know the name is weird as hell, but the WF actually stands for their Tsubaki line, and Tsubaki means camellia in Japanese. So this is the Tsubaki line with the black ferrule and the red handle. I only got this brush, or I only got mine engraved because I didn't know at the time about the association of WF and the Tsubaki line, and I connected the dots recently, which is why my 16 ROV EXS in my first video has WF in front of it. So this is their European dressed Canadian squirrel brush, which is softer and stronger than regular CS. I believe they conditioned the hairs more, but I'm not sure how they managed to make it stronger. The website description says this has a strong elasticity in Japanese. Let's see. I contemplated for a long time whether or not I should get this because it's 4,000 yen for a dinky little eyeshadow brush. It's smaller than the Hakuhodo J5523 and MAC 217. So I'm going to compare it with the Hakuhodo J5523. Smaller. And if I go over here, here's the side. The goat hair one is fluffier because goat hairs are coarser and thicker. Oops. Okay, so while it is a lot softer than any other of my CS brushes, I wouldn't go out of my way to buy it again. Why? Because it doesn't perform that well. I've tried it with metallic-y glitter shades and mattes, and I applied metallics without the glitter, which was downright odd, and it applied mattes patchy. Today I used it again for a matte shade, and it wasn't patchy, but it was just not as pigmented as I wanted it to be, and it just it didn't apply as well as a goat brush would. I can apply my mattes without any issues with my Hakuhodo goat brushes, like this one and a bunch of other ones. Canadian Squirrel is known for being able to pick up glitters, metallics, and satin shadows, and yet this one performs horribly for that. The website says it's good for accent colors in Japanese, which means the darker shades after you've applied the all-over lid color. Perhaps it's too soft, so it's unable to do much. I don't know, but I would say save your money and get some Hakuhodo eyeshadow brushes instead. So it is extremely soft, like it's a lot softer than any other like my Hakuhodo ones, and like it's softer than these brushes I'm about to talk about right now. But yeah, softness is not everything. Okay, so let me move this. Oops, I'm like moving stuff around. And yeah, now I will do the whole comparison with the other brushes. So here's the Hakuhodo S122. Takeda, and then, okay, let me pull out the Koyudo GS1 as well. You can see that coloring is for all three of them are very different. Okay, so the Takeda is the softest, and both the S122 on the right and the GS1 on the left apply eyeshadow better than the Takeda. Hakuhodo's is the least silky of them all, but it's only a minimal difference between the S122 and the GS1. So I'd say there's a small difference in softness and silkiness between these two, but it's not that big. And the GS1, the color is the closest to Koyudo's Pine Squirrel. So this is the BP35, and I love this brush a lot. It's hard to tell, but you can see. I think the Pine Squirrel, yeah, it's closer to the European dressed Canadian Squirrel here in terms of color. And in terms of softness for these two, they are actually quite close, which is really surprising. I mean, like, the Takeda one is, if it was like a 9 in terms of softness, the Pine Squirrel is probably like an 8. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. All right, these next two brushes are completely customized from the heads to the engraving. The one in the middle right here is the 16 RS CSQU, otherwise known as the Sonia brush. Sonia is the author of the Sweet Makeup Temptations blog, who is a Fude lover and collector as well. She also loves round brushes, so I figured I'd get her blush brush design. This is a round blush brush with long hairs. The hair length is 32 millimeters, which is a little shorter than my preferred brush length of 35. But for some reason, the hairs on this brush feel longer. It's hard to tell. The base price is 21,000 yen with a 1,000 yen custom order fee and additional fees for ferrule and engraving adjustments. I'm mentioning the prices for these particular ones because they are custom made and aren't listed on the website, but you can also get a general gist of the CS pricing by exploring their site. I've only tried this for blush so far, but I'm going to be upfront about it and say that I don't like it. So you can see, here's the hairs. There are two extremely peculiar things about this brush. The hairs at the base of the ferrule feel like they're glued in, so like right on the bottom right here. They're super stiff and immovable. Second thing is the head doesn't fluff up or splay out much when you use it on your face, which is fine, but that's because the bottom portion is so stiff that I'm only getting 50 to 60% of the top half of the head to move when I use it. You can't really tell when I demonstrate on the back of my hand, but when you go to use it on your face, you'll know what I'm talking about. I tried this with an Hourglass blush and a limited edition Chanel blush, which is harder pressed. And I typically dip into my blush pan more than once when I'm applying blush. So I dipped it into both blushes a few times and it seemed to pick up a medium amount with the Hourglass blush and applied pigmentedly for a Squirrel brush. With the Chanel blush, it didn't seem to pick up product quite as well. In terms of finish I get on my face, well, you would think it would look nice because it's small enough for targeted blush, right? But the way that it's bundled and the length of the hairs just makes it apply weirdly. It doesn't give me a targeted blush finish, and my blush looks very imprecise. The most imprecise blush application I've ever had in my life, in fact. Now, it can be that my makeup application skills aren't the best, but I wouldn't recommend this brush to people who are beginner to intermediate makeup users. It would most likely work better for advanced users or makeup artists. And yeah, I can use this for a variety of other things, which I'll probably resort to now that I know that it doesn't really apply blush that well. If you want a scroll blush brush that applies pigmentedly and blends nicely in a round shape, I recommend the Koyudo RC2. There you go. It's dense enough to blend well, unlike some other scroll brushes like the CSQU Cheek. So I love this brush. Okay. And the lighting changed. Before I get into the next brush, I'd like to compare the hair with Koyudo's and Hakuhodo's CS. Okay, so this is the limited edition Koyudo CS blush brush. Depending on the batch, the hair color will vary for Takeda, and I mean any other company it'll vary for. My brushes are less orange than a Fude buddy's who also has these two brushes. One of her brushes has a vibrant orange color, which I'm jealous of. Like, I think her brush over there, that one has a vibrant orange shade. In terms of softness, the Koyudo brush is softer and feels more conditioned, closer to the Takeda European dressed CS hairs. The gradation of Koyudo's brush is near perfect, and you can tell it was meticulously put together, something I appreciate tremendously because I'm a detail-oriented person. The Takeda gradation is not as nice, and overall appearance seems duller in general. The con about the Koyudo brush is that it applies kind of patchy, but a Fude buddy has told me that if I don't keep it in the brush guard and leave it out to fluff up, it should perform better. And next is Hakuhodo. With the S122, the Hakuhodo CS seems less conditioned and not as glossy as the Takeda, but the gradation of the hairs are put together better. I love Hakuhodo CS and wish they made face brushes with this hair type. And the brush that applies the best is the last one that I'll be talking about. I'm just gonna leave this. I'm just gonna leave this here. So I saved the best for last. This one right here is the 16 SOV CSQU, otherwise known as the Novy brush. Novy is another huge Fude lover, and I believe this is the dupe for the Kiwami cheek from the discontinued Chikuhodo Kiwami set. The shape is a flattened oval, focus, with a fine point. Mine looks very pointy because I always keep it in a brush guard. And the base price is 25,000 yen with an additional 1,000 yen custom order fee and fees for engravings and the ferrule, so it adds up. The price is perplexing because it doesn't seem to have any more hair than the Sonia brush, yet it costs 4,000 yen more. Like, what? I don't understand. Interestingly enough, this brush has the same exact name as my beloved 16 SOV EXS, the goat version. with only the hair type being different. It should technically have the same shape, but it doesn't. The EXS brush is not tapered whatsoever and has a fluffier body. The fluffier body makes sense as goat hairs are thicker than squirrel hairs. I'm guessing due to the nature of each brush being individually handmade, there will be some discrepancies in shapes for the same brush. This goes for all Kumano Fude companies. So, okay, back to this brush. It seems to apply better than the Sonia brush, but it's still not my favorite for blush. They both apply more subtly than some of my other brushes. I'll have to find other uses for the two brushes. So yeah. For a highlighter, it picks up an ample amount. Ooh. Good enough for me since I love pigmented highlight application. It applies pigmentedly too, which is great. However, it accentuates my pores at the top of my cheekbones. I tested this with the Hakuhodo J5521 on the other side of my face, and this brush does not do that. So this is my holy grail favorite highlighting brush of all time. I highly recommend it to everyone. The Hakuhodo one. So since the shape is tapered, I tried contouring with it, but the head is too flexible for that. And it has that weird like stiff feeling on the lower, like 20 to 30%. Same thing as the Sonia brush. This is a nice brush, and while I like it, I can't completely recommend it for the price or at the price. With the current exchange rate, it's almost $2.50 before shipping. I can get better results with some of my other brushes for a fraction of the cost. Let me just, okay, had to move that up. All in all, my favorite Fude brands are Hakuhodo for Go and CS, and Chikuhodo and Koyudo for Squirrel, or Blue and Gray Squirrel. I don't think it's necessary for you to go out of your way to buy Takeda brushes unless you're Fude obsessed, are curious to try them out for yourself, or want to customize the ferrules and handles. Their prices are generally higher than the other three brands. Their shipping costs more than Hakuhodo's worldwide international shipping. And quality-wise, the EXS hairs are comparable to Hakuhodo Saikoho, and I prefer the silkiness and gradation of Koyudo's CS hair more. I realize I'm being overly critical, but I have high standards for Fude. You may purchase Takeda brushes and be over the moon with them. It's all dependent upon personal preference. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.